All right, folks, welcome in to tonight's edition of Wave Extra on Tuesday after Labor Day, and a bit of a break for yours truly here at the Wave Now desk, but appreciating the day that is ahead of us and the night that's still ahead of us because we have Wave News reporter Logan Perrone. I'm Jose Sosaya, walking you through this unpacking and unwinding of the day's top stories, and of course the reports that part of our team like Logan are still going to uncover, because there are things and news still happening toward the back half of our day. One of those being, Logan, the fact that you spend some time checking in on a pretty important item for the Clarksville Town Council, and the end result after plenty of negotiating, trying to find that compromise, but it seems like both sides have landed where they wanted to, which is with a deal on the table now, right?
Deal not just on the table, but approved. And in effect. Okay. So that's the big thing. So what we're talking about here, folks, is in Clarksville. We are talking about the contract between the Fraternal Order of Police, that's the union that represents the police officers, and the town council. So they passed that tonight. And this is after, Jose, I just want to preview. It was not just, a couple of negotiations. This was about 2 years worth of negotiations between town council and the Fraternal Order of Police, trying to get a new contract, excuse me, folks, that'll go into effect retroactively January 1st of this year. So to give you guys some context for those of you that are just catching up like I was today, essentially the contract between the union and the town, that expired in 2024, at least the old one did. And there was 8 full months where the police officers were working out of the savings continuation clause and a savings clause. That's how they were getting paid. There was no contract for 8 months of the year. And, just to add context, it finally boiled over in August, the first meeting of the town council last month. It boiled over to where that meeting ended abruptly within minutes. And that, I don't want to say that's the thing that jump-started and accelerated the conversation, Jose, but our partners at the News and Tribune, they were on this before us. I'll give them that credit. They had reported that it was after this meeting, council members then approached some of the union members, and they accelerated that process of getting that deal finalized. I believe it was the 19th is when the Fraternal Order of Police had said, hey, we've agreed to a 3-year contract. That was unofficial. Today, as of this meeting, it's now official. They have that 3-year deal.
And for the sake of context, Logan, and not to sort of necessarily, it's not to undercut all the hard work they probably did to have a follow-up conversation, a follow-up discussion, trying to be as honest and transparent. Right. But some of those tempers did kind of flare a little bit, if you'll let me. I did kind of find some of the prior video that Logan is alluding to, in that there were some moments, and we were there to at least find the camera recording, that it got a little contentious. So let me play just a snippet of this part, and there's more to it, but let's play some of this.
I feel the first 2 years of the pay increase for the police are right on track with our neighboring communities. But now I would like to speak directly to our lawmakers in Indianapolis.
I believe there's a difference.
This is what happens after Labor Day, folks. We got to reacclimate ourselves.
This is where I was going to. Oh, I see what it is, because I do know which one was primed. So let's see if this is the one. This is the vertical video one, and this is dating back to
This was August 5th of last year, and I'll give you guys some context. The meeting starts on the consent agenda. That's where, council members can bring things up. Members of the police force, members that were part of the union, they wanted the council to bring up the contract. They wanted them to talk about it, vote on it. And this is what ended up happening. This was a viewer video.
Shame on you!
Boo! So we have
now, essentially, what you're hearing there is the council ending the meeting minutes after it started. And again, it just highlighted that there was that disconnect between town council and the police union. So
there is another snippet, if I could play this one correctly, since now I have the order up, Logan. So this is just from the same context of that meeting.
You're reconvening upstairs for...
You're all running away.
There is no matter to consider before the board tonight.
So yeah, it was one of those things where, again, this was going on close to 2 years of negotiations back and forth, and the union knowing that, hey, we don't have a contract in place. And again, our partners at the News and Tribune had it reported, again, about a year after the contract ends, you can demand a third-party mediator to come in and force you to sit down at the table. And again, that's not what Clarksville Police, it's not what the town council wanted. So after that meeting, everything accelerated. There was positive discussions is what was reported. And again, within a month.
Sure, and some of those points, Logan, and you'll break some of this down tonight, but it seems, coming into a new contract and Clarksville Police could compare and contrast their peer agencies across Kentuckiana. In Wave Country, we've got, in bigger cities and smaller cities, but sort of the kinds of benefits that we see appear in line with much more modern sort of police and city or town contracts, which is what those were the concessions that police were asking for. And it seems like as far as pay is concerned, that's something that they wanted to touch on, and the other ancillary benefits, right?
Yes, so I want to just go into those a little bit. So pay was the big thing. First and foremost, there is a pay increase that will be going out to these officers. In fact, year one, 2025, $66,000 becomes the base salary. That's higher, I believe about $8,000 to $9,000 higher than what it originally was in the last collective bargaining agreement between the two parties. And over the next 2 years, that's actually going to go up to $73,500 by the time that they're in the last year of this contract, which again, because it's retroactive, would be 2027. And another thing that was on the list of demands was longevity pay. And so this is something that for the first 5 years on the force, you are, accruing that. It's 1.5% per year. It's capped at 25 years, which would be 37.5%. And that starts to get paid out after the completion of the 5th year of service with the department. So I did get to talk with the chief earlier. We'll actually get to hear from him later on Wave News at 11. But again, I asked him bluntly, I said, what does this do for you? He goes, it helps with recruiting. It helps with retention. Two things that I feel like I've heard every single police department, not just in Louisville, not just in Southern Indiana, but everywhere that I've ever worked has talked about being something that, they have to work with is bringing in good police officers and keeping good police officers. The one thing not on the list, which is on the term sheet that was part of tonight's agenda, that was a demand, was paternity and maternity leave. Did not see that on this list, but I do not have my hands on the full contract. Sure. But as far as the term sheet goes, that's the one thing that they had asked for that isn't on the term sheet.
And that was made at least public record in that it was something wherever that fell in the stages of the negotiation, that was something that police officers were hoping would be a concession from town council. But you might argue, there's a conversation to be had, Logan, about retention, keeping your good employees, what that does to, solidify the investment in public safety that a local government like Clarksville is wanting to make. I'm sure leaders, whether you did get a chance to talk to them or not, we're going to have that discussion about balancing a budget or where the spending and how they're going to have to manage this spending moving forward, which we were having these conversations earlier today, just in talking about stories, folks. And one of those questions being, we were curious about with the savings clause, and you're like, is that, well, we can ask these questions of where they're making sure they're able to pay their officers per that provision in the contract, but where's that money coming from? I'm sure that's a conversation about making sure you're good for the money to pay for public safety.
Correct. And to that point, the conversation then shifts to the future of the department. So Senate Bill 1, we've talked about that several times, at least on Wave News at 11, throughout our coverage of that bill coming into effect. It's going to impact a lot of departments. We've already seen Jeffersonville navigating through that, and in part of that, a shakeup in leadership with the chief stepping down 2 weeks, 2 Fridays ago. And now we're seeing it in Clarksville, where this is what the situation is. With this new contract, Jose, we're looking at $1 million increased in the operating budget for Clarksville's police department. That was something that was brought up tonight. But in 2028, Senate Bill 1, they are set to lose $2 million. I'm not a math guy, but I can tell you if you're going to increase costs in one area by $1 million and you're going to lose $2 billion elsewhere, something's got to give. You can't, I mean, again, like I said, the math
You're left
just
with a
doesn't math.
deficit. You're absolutely right.
Yes. And so that's why partially this has become contentious lately. It's okay, we already have to find a budget that works, but we also at the same time have to realize these officers do need the pay to have that and so that the department has that retention, so that they can recruit new officers and put them on the street. It's finding that balance. And, one of the things that was brought up by one of the council members, and we'll play that out here for you, was how this is good. The, officers deserve the raise. They do great work on the streets of Clarksville. But this contract will have repercussions going forward. So let's play that out.
I feel the first 2 years of the pay increase for the police are right on track with our neighboring communities. But now I would like to speak directly to our lawmakers in Indianapolis. Senate Bill 1, which will hit the town the hardest in 2028, will decrease our revenues by over $2 million. Knowing this now and agreeing to a 3-year pay increase has placed our town in a situation we really need to look at some ways to save funds. I would like to remind Chief Nathan Walls, as the chief and department head, it will be your responsibility to create a budget that can withstand a pay raise of $73,500, I believe it is, per officer per year in 2027. I'm sure this task will be obtained because you know as much as I do that our town deserves to be kept safe and our officers deserve to be compensated for the risk they take every single day. To the town and to those that elected me as to represent them, know that there may be major cuts and a decrease in spending, but as we all on the council and staff are doing our own best to strive to keep you a town that is safe, livable, and peaceful. With that, I make a motion to pass these terms.
And again, that was passed by the council today. But again, you have to realize that there are future repercussions here from Senate Bill 1 because of the way that it's going to impact cities like Jeffersonville, Clarksville. There are going to have to be cuts somewhere. And again, I just want to go back to, I was on the coverage for Chief Kenny Cavanaugh stepping down in Jeffersonville. That was one of those things where he didn't see eye to eye with the mayor necessarily on how they move forward with that. This is another one of those situations, Jose, where okay, well, this contract is going to have an impact because of Senate Bill 1. So you heard right there one of the council members saying, hey, look, write to the lawmakers. Address this to the lawmakers. This is hurting us down here in southern Indiana. And again, this is one of those things that needed to happen. Obviously, a pay increase for the officers is important. Getting them longevity pay was important.
You understand the decision making.
Yes, and it's not like it wasn't something that these people did not want to do. These lawmakers did not want to do in Clarksville, but it was something that they're looking at one evil and another. I wouldn't even call it an evil, but
No, it's a hard decision, and
it's a hard decision,
and
yes.
you're bound by of course the codes and regulation and law, but it's sort of for the sake of the money you have to put aside for a budget. Excuse me. In public safety, but you can't, unless people want to start having a conversation in governments across southern Indiana about where are the tax hikes coming? Where are those tax increases then going to come
like I said,
from?
something's going to have to give if you're going to lose $2 million, but increase your operating costs alone on the police department by $1 million.
Yep.
And again, for a good reason. That's where it's a hard, delicate balance. And like what was said in those that little snip from the meeting today, it's going to be up to the chief to balance that budget on how he does things. But ultimately, you got to commend both sides for realizing what was at stake, coming to the table, and putting together a deal that was beneficial, both for the people as well as the officers they serve.
One more question for you, Logan, as of course we're going to let you get back to work for the big report tonight on Wave News at 11. I'm curious if when talking to Chief or anyone else involved in the decision, if there was an expectation that the deal would have been a little longer. I don't know if the context that matters here is because SB1's shadow has its influence on what kind of budget they could set aside for the police department, but to say that, did they talk about normally contracts would go longer than this? It feels like it's a 2-year
It's a 3-year.
It's a 3-year new contract.
New contract.
Okay.
That wasn't something that brought up. Really, the one thing that I heard from the chief today was that he's glad that this is behind him. He's hoping that they can focus on other things now. Obviously, protecting the community and being there for the community, the number one thing that the police department does. But at the end of the day, that wasn't necessarily something that got brought up, but it was part of the reason that things had kind of stalled out was the uncertainty that the Senate bill brought.
Excellent. So more from you tonight on Wave News at 11, Logan. Anything else that folks can expect as you sort of, you're going to keep staying on top of this, but what are some other things that either, interest you for questions moving forward or some things that, will be questions that you have that, maybe we discuss tonight or discuss down the road? What are some things that they can look forward to?
Well, I think going forward, we're going to have to truly examine Senate Bill 1 and its impacts because at some point, like I said, and like we just said, the taxpayers will be taking the brunt of this, whether that's for an increase in some sort of tax, a new tax, who knows what it's going to be. Again, we're not mind readers, we're just reporters, so, we try to get ahead of things, but, that's the big thing is how will this ultimately impact? The one thing that I got from the chief was, hey, look, guys, you're not going to have to worry about the quality of the service. We will always be there for you. We're always going to do our job to the best of our ability. But you got to remember at some point, and I'm sure we're going to be reporting this and following up with this, at some point, something's got to give. Someone's going to have to pay more, whether that's the city, the state, and again, maybe there's amendments to Senate Bill 1. I don't know. That is something that we just have to follow.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for staying on top of that, Logan. By the way, we always like to tell you for you night owls, or hopefully as you're still unwinding for the night, that we will be here, the makeup of the Wave News at 11 team, myself, the storm tracking team, Logan, making sure he's got his, we call it that full report for tonight for you at 11 at the top of the hour. So hopefully you can join us then. Logan's going to be there. We do appreciate Logan's time walking us through this story that Logan has heard me say this as probably anyone else who's joined on the streaming. It's that, the story, even though we know the conversation for this deal ended, that doesn't mean the whole story ended because there's going to be a follow-up to another follow-up to another follow-up because these stories don't end. You got to ask, okay, what's next and who is this impacting in that context?
Keep going. All
right, folks, we're going to reset and let Logan go. Between them, we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with more Wave Extra. So I hit my mic early. Okay, we'll be right back after this break. All right, folks, welcome back into Wave Extra. Jose Sosaya walking you through things at the desk as we're coming up on 8:25. if you have noticed the new graphics package, still kind of working through some of those small little speed bumps, and we'll call it, it is the day after Labor Day. Hopefully everyone did have a great holiday weekend, enjoying what they could, spending time with the people that you hold dear, and starting off the month of September. So hopefully for most of you that was the case. I know as we kind of dive into the big stories that start our week, it's not that we're also not finding those things that are going on in your community that leave positive impressions, positive impacts. Sometimes it's just sort of the heartbreak and the awful things that sometimes you come across when you check on police radio or find posts on social media and such. There's an example of that reflected in how the community is pouring out its love and compassion and empathy after a Labor Day crash out on the Gene Snyder, where it's the worst thing you'd want to hear, that a young girl died, her mom and her sibling now fighting for their lives as they're receiving care in the hospital. We do know that this crash in particular happened Monday morning, early Monday morning on the Gene Snyder at New Cut Road. Up to this point, we do know at least one driver is facing DUI and murder charges. Part of our reporting team of the day trying to gauge and talk to the community as they're processing what happened. Part of that is that we also spent the day talking to advocates, groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and we talked to the head of the Kentucky chapter here locally. And it's a chapter that has plenty of years of advocacy, but she talked about how it's beyond frustrating that you're still having to have these conversations about crashes that involve impaired drivers. And to that end, you see here an image of this GoFundMe. It identifies or it shares the name of the young girl we lost, 12-year-old Jada. Now, just for stats that Matt had provided, that in 2024, more than 700 people were killed in car crashes in Kentucky. Out of those deaths, she says almost 20% involved impaired drivers, and that 47% of those people, on top of that, were not wearing their seatbelts. And unfortunately, it's another circumstance that we did see in Monday's crash, because Metro Police are saying the young girl who died at 12 was not wearing her seatbelt, so a mix of circumstances there. But this is what our advocate had to say this afternoon.
I'm thinking about the mother. I mean, her life. And we talk about the 12-year-old who had everything ahead of her. But that mother lost her child. And that's something that I don't even have words to describe.
And to that end, as I play some different video, or the same video here, we're also learning the mother of the two kids is apparently going to face charges because police are citing her for wanton endangerment, for not making sure that her children were properly fastened in their seats. So you heard the advocate there, Windhorst, encouraging drivers, if they're out and about, to call police if they see any impaired drivers on the road. She talks about how important that is, and as you're driving, if you notice this, to keep your distance from anybody who's driving erratically, but to make sure that you do call it in. I want to play some of the video from today's appearance in court for now presumably the defendant and the suspect in this case, behind the wheel in Monday's deadly crash. This is part of that video appearing before a judge for his first time this morning. Wave News reporter Kirsten Foote was there for the actual arraignment.
Ronaldo Gill is facing several charges, including murder and driving under the influence. Tuesday morning, he entered a plea of not guilty. Investigators say around 2:30 Monday morning, Gill was driving a Dodge Durango when he hit a Jeep Compass near New Cut Road. The Jeep rolled onto its top and into a median. Investigators say a 12-year-old was thrown out of the Jeep and died at the scene. The girl's mother and another child were also found outside the Jeep and taken to U of L Hospital with life-threatening injuries. In court Tuesday morning, Gill's attorney representing him asked his bond be lowered to $100,000. Instead, the judge raised the bond from the initial $250,000 to $500,000 and had this to say.
License suspension is in effect, so you don't have an active license right now, so there's no driving, okay? I am going to increase the bond to $500,000 full cash to HIP, not as a punitive measure, Mr. Gill, because I find you to be a danger to everyone in this community.
The mother of the two children has been identified as Jasmine Simpson. She's been cited for not properly securing the two children in the car and wanton endangerment. LMPD says that the mother and the other child remain in the hospital in life-threatening condition. As for Gil, he'll be back in court on September 10th. Reporting in Louisville, Kirsten Foote, Wave News.
More updates and headlines as we again go through the rest of our Tuesday evening. We have learned the name of a woman who was shot and killed in downtown Louisville. This happened just before 10:30 last night on South Brook Street. This was near Broadway. Police say they found 36-year-old Ashley Lanham shot outside this particular spot. She was taken to the hospital to try to save her, but unfortunately she died. Police say they haven't made any arrests in her death so far, but they are asking for tips if you do have that information. Moving on to a story that is out of Houston, Texas, where police say they've charged a 42-year-old man with murder because of a ding-dong ditch prank turned into a shooting where police say he shot an 11-year-old boy and killed him. This is the mugshot of the suspect, Gonzalo Leon Jr., booked into jail, appeared in court. He's accused of shooting Julian Guzman, who was playing, presumably the game Ding Dong Ditch. During the game, someone rings a doorbell or knocks loudly on a door and then runs away. Police saying a witness told them the boy was running away from the house when he was shot. Bringing things back to sort of a case that has years behind it, but this is an update because more than 6 years after a young father was gunned down on his way going home from holding his newborn twins, the second of 3 men charged in this case, in this investigation, officially learned how long he's going to spend time in prison. So Sadell Richardson Jr. took a plea deal and has now been sentenced to 11 years in prison. Prosecutors say he and 2 others, Clifton Jones Jr. and Deshaun Garrison, shot and killed Tyrese Garvin. This was in a drive-by in Smoketown back in 2019. So Richardson, Jones Jr., and Garrison, under the ages of 18 at the time this crime happened, but all 3 were charged as adults. And today in court, a judge telling Richardson that he has a chance to turn his life around.
Ultimately, you are going to get out, Mr. Richardson. You have hopefully a long life ahead of you. This does not have to be the thing that defines the rest of your life, all right? You need to take advantage of this opportunity that you've been given here, and I hope that when you are released, you do not come back into this courthouse.
Richardson will be credited for the time he served in this case. As for the other 2 men who were charged, Jones Jr. did take a plea deal back in July, sentenced to 8 years in prison for what happened to Garvin. The other suspect, Deshaun Garrison, scheduled to come back into court on September 11th. We're here at 8:33. Want to leave you all as we head into break with this shot of our sunset, our SkyTrack network, observing a bit of that, skyline, let's put it, but in the background there with the sun. Aboard above our Paristown camera right there, enjoying some sprinkling of clouds up in the sky. Something we'll discuss shortly with the storm tracking team. Great to see, what's been pleasant weather, and maybe depending on where you are, where you were around the area and Metro, you might have caught some of those showers. A lot of counties in our coverage had desperately been hoping for with the burn ban and just trying to beat back some of that drought. So, by the way, send us if you had any rain come by your house or your work or wherever it was in your backyard. We'd love to discuss that and share with the team and display that on our cameras and our screens on Wave News at 11. So something, if you want to send it our way, we'd be more than happy to share it. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with much more Wave Extra on this Tuesday, September 2nd.
This is a News Extra on Wave Now.
All right, folks, welcome back in. 8:36 on this Tuesday, September 2nd, joining us in the Wave Now studio for tonight's Wave Extra. If you remember, we discussed a story last week, I believe, where we learned these plans of the Omni Hotel in downtown, now proposing to develop what they're calling a pickleball-focused entertainment venue. We're talking, and we've seen early schematics of the plan, indoor courts, outdoor courts, a bit of a bar, sort of in the vein of nightlife and a destination for people to go hang out and do some of that downtown is known for. The plan is for it, though, to go on the lot that's currently occupied by the 19th century Oddfellows building at 2nd and Muhammad Ali. Apparently, though, this is something that some critics of the plan are trying to prevent. It seems to be the latest round in a fight to keep the Oddfellows building standing for preservation groups. Preservationists in the past and appeals to Metro Council to save some of these older buildings have lost, at least with regards to permits or argumentation and regulations. They've also lost some appeals through the courts, but now they're appealing to the public, and what could be the final stand for this particular structure. Wave News reporter David Mattingly heard from the group trying to stop the actual building from being demolished.
It may have been built in 1897, but the Louisville Metro Council found it so lacking in historical and architectural significance that it offered to pay $400,000 to have the Oddfellows building torn down. Current owner Omni Hotel is now asking the city for the green light to bring in the wrecking ball and to build an entertainment venue with indoor and outdoor pickleball courts, an outdoor game area, and an indoor bar, restaurant, and entertainment space. Critics say losing the building would be bad enough, but they're now using the plan to replace it with pickleball courts to rally public support.
If Omni is unwilling to repurpose this historic building into its development, we ask the mayor and Metro Council to oppose this pickleball project until Omni can propose a much better quality project.
Louisville Historical League President Steve Weiser leads preservationists who are suggesting two alternatives to demolition: keep the building standing as part of a new development, or move it.
Move it to the corner at 2nd and Muhammad Ali. If you look at the Omni proposal, they're building a new building there on this corner. We can take that $400,000 and move that building over just to that corner.
Omni Hotel management declined comment. In a letter to the city dated August 26, management requested a permit for demolition, saying for their plans to proceed, the building has to come down.
And that was our David Mattingly reporting right there. Now, should the demolition be approved in the end, construction would still be 5 years away for that indoor-outdoor pickleball setup complex, plus the bar, restaurant, and the outdoor game and entertainment space. More headlines for you tonight. This is pertaining to another Labor Day crash, but this time in southern Indiana, because in this case, one person died, 2 others were hurt, including a child who was seriously hurt as well. This is the information we have, as you can see it on screen. It happened Monday afternoon on North State Road 7 in DuPont, Indiana. 3 cars involved. Unfortunately, the man who died, 49-year-old Edwin Harmond of Madison, we've learned a young passenger in his car was flown to Louisville to be treated. There was an 18-year-old driver and another car also flown to be treated at a hospital in Louisville. The third driver involved was able to be treated at the scene. The cause of the crash is still being investigated tonight. Moving on to another investigation, perhaps now eventually turning into a trial the prosecutors can bring forward. Metro Police saying they've made another arrest in a deadly shooting at California Park back in February. We've told you over the different iterations and updates and developments that a young man was arrested. We're told that a young man was arrested yesterday, charged with complicity to murder, attempted murder, and assault. Because, it seems the boy is a juvenile, his name nor his age was released. We do know 19-year-old Sean Grady and another 17-year-old were arrested for being connected to this case in July. They're facing the same charges. One teen had died. Another person was hurt in this particular shooting. Coming back here to the desk, in another case we've been following, and recently it's factoring in the frustration, disgust perhaps from a mother hoping that her daughter gets justice for what was done to her and leaving her paralyzed. One of 3 people charged in this case that in the end became a road rage shooting, paralyzing this little girl. Well, we learned there was a hearing in court for a bond, and so we're going to show you some of that video we were able to get. Now, back in November of 23, a judge said Edward Sark's bond at $100,000. Well, today the judge lowered that dollar amount to $40,000. If Sark posts the bond, he'll be put on home incarceration, so home arrest. Sark is supposed to come back to court on October 8th, and he's set to go to trial April of next year. Now, one of the other suspects, Jonathan Rivera, pleaded guilty earlier in August to 5 counts of wanton endangerment. Who you see is the 3rd suspect there, named Shelby Biskiner, was in court recently for what was supposed to be a bond hearing. But days before, she'd hired a new attorney, and it was decided that new attorney needed more time to catch up on her case. And so she would not be ready for the initial trial date, which was set for today. And instead, her new trial date is set for next year. What we want to read you is a statement from Onyx Sand's mother. So Onyx is the little girl who was paralyzed in that road rage shooting, sending Wave News the statement today after she also found out about Edward Sark's bond reduction hearing from $100,000 to $40,000, writing that Onyx is the victim and she feels like she's getting overlooked. She goes on to say in part, quote, "The criminals in this case have been shown leniency since the very beginning. When does Onyx get her break? I just want everyone to put themselves in my shoes and imagine if this was their child." Strong statement, of course, from China Sands, Onyx's mother right there. So, of course, as we do mark that on our calendar for when those respective dates, at least for Biskiner coming up, and then for Sark when that trial is supposed to start, it's marked on our calendar. Should anything change in between that time, we'll of course let you know, but the expectation is they will have their day in court and we'll hear what the arguments are from prosecutors and from the defense attorneys in that respect as well. We're going to take one more commercial break to reset, show you some more of the stories as we're kind of wrapping up this hour of our Tuesday evening, so hope you stick around with us. We're going to share more of that from our reporting team and our anchor team right here on Wave News, so we're going to be right back with more Wave Extra. All right, everyone, welcome back into Wave Extra 846. Talking now different kinds of stories as we go about to start our week, starting the month of September off. And in a year with a lot of changes for JCPS in particular, for the families, teachers, students, one of those changes, of course, being part of a greater national conversation over the availability and the overuse of smartphones inside classrooms or all over school campuses. It seems, as our reporting is figuring out, that district leaders, even though it's very early in the year, they're noticing what they're calling a culture shift. Less than a month into the district's first year of the cell phone ban, students seem to be checking out library books at a record rate. Wave News anchor Brian Schlonsky spent part of his day talking to some PRP seniors, teens who would be taking advantage of the kind of books that would bring them in so they can check them out, bring them back, and then have access to the entire library. They say the ban, in turn, has also apparently benefited their social lives. One senior talking to Brian says with his face out of his phone is talking to more people in the last 3 weeks than the last 12 years combined. So sort of bringing him out of his proverbial shell there. So this is Brian's report from the library.
At first, I was real dramatic about the policy. I thought it was going to end my whole life.
Michael is a senior at PRP High. The new policy he's referring to is a cell phone ban brought about after a new state law prohibiting cell phone use during class and lunch. What Michael found, the policy didn't end his life at all, but instead, putting down the phone has jump-started parts of his life that lay dormant.
I just realized this is a good chance for me to put my phone down and start focusing back in on school.
That focus, he says, is already paying off in ways he never could have imagined, namely his social life.
Helps people socialize because this year I've talked to people more than I have in all 12 years of me being in school.
Conversing more and reading more too.
What I found is that kids are rediscovering the library again, so we're turning from phones to pages.
Dr. Lynn Reynolds is the JCPS Executive Director of Library Media Services. She says the cell phone ban has had a positive effect on reading. At PRP, for example, students checked out more than 1,000 books in the first 17 days of school. Last year, the entire year, just over 2,100. Ballard, Seneca, Central, Wagner, even some middle schools reporting similar results. And Reynolds says it's not just JCPS. Other districts in Kentucky are telling her the same thing.
I see that there's going to be a shift across the nation.
For Michael, who's already checked out 6 books this year, he can't imagine going back to hours of doom scrolling.
Last year, during the school year, from 6:30 to 10:30 at night, I was on my phone pretty much, I was on it during class. I was on it in the hallways.
Our thanks to Brian reporting there. And you might ask, at least as far as feedback from district leaders, because you heard from what it's done short term for sure, but short term for the high schoolers, the middle schoolers. What about for younger children? Well, Dr. Reynolds says one way to get them engaged in reading and to then put the screens down, even though the ban applies to them as well. But one thing to better encourage them, she says, is to have them read to you in the car while you're driving home. This is for parents. So if they're in the back seat, reading their book aloud while you're driving and listening to what it is they have to say is one recommendation from the library expert team at JCPS. Talking other stories as we kind of go about our week, tomorrow the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet is officially starting the first round of street closures when it comes to the I-65 Central Corridor project, putting you in the location where some of these big changes are going to happen. Closures at Southbrook and Kentucky streets, as well as Hill Street and Burnett Avenue in downtown. And a reminder, these are just the first series of the closures for a $150 million project. This is going to replace 3 aging bridges on I-65. These bridges include the ones right over Kentucky and Brook Streets. There's a CSX rail line over Hill and Burnett. There's also the bridge over Bradley Avenue. The work in earnest overall should be fully finished by the middle of 2027. We go through some interesting, we'll put the graphics back up here really quick. So the Fraser Museum really quick wants to showcase the history of bourbon, what they're calling through a crafted tasting experience. In their announcement today, the museum talking about starting the week, they want to offer the quote, most unique tasting experience in Kentucky. It's part bluegrass show, part comedy set, part history lesson, bourbon tasting, all in one. It's a 90-minute experience offered every Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday through December 22nd. This is the Fraser Museum, called Bourbon Through Bluegrass. Admission for the overall experience, it's going to run $110 per the museum, but you just have that for reference. And this is the name of the exhibition, called Bourbon Through Bluegrass, something you can go research further online through the Fraser Museum if that is something you are interested in. And our last story of tonight, for folks perhaps coming up on that stage in their lives where you're discussing, do I retire? When do I start considering applying for those benefits that come from Social Security? And what we might know, if you're someone in the situation thinking about it, is there's some information that may not be at least readily available or necessarily obvious. So understanding the kinds of benefits you have, your savings, can make a difference when you're trying to make ends meet once you are going to have that retirement conversation. There's a recent analysis done by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities saying that without Social Security, more than 22 million Americans would subsequently fall into poverty. And so for experts, they say it's important to know as much as you can and get out of the program as much as you can. So Wave News anchor Dawn G. spent some time today putting her reports together, talking to not just a financial planner, but an investment advisor about making sure you're not only getting the most out of your Social Security, but that you are still able to thrive. And so this is Dawn's report.
Many Americans rely on Social Security as their sole income source in retirement. Social Security was never meant to be your sole source of retirement income.
Marcus Warren is the founder and president of Warren Wealth Management and Tax Planning. As a financial planner and investment advisor, Warren reminds people to be secure in retirement. Plan for not only Social Security, but your savings, investments, and any 401k plan or pension you may have. And remember, Social Security is not one of your savings plans.
When you pay into Social Security, it's not your own personal pension fund. It is a Social Security tax. Now, it has been construed to seem like, hey, I paid into this to my own, I paid my dollars into my Social Security account. I want my Social Security.
The money you pay right now covers current Social Security payments for present retirees. It does not go into an account for you. With the largest wave of retirees in U.S. history, as the baby boomers step out of the workplace, people are living longer, and birth rates are declining, that Social Security pool your money is placed in is not as deep.
In 2033, people who are receiving Social Security or who have yet to receive Social Security will receive a 23% reduction in benefits.
It has been estimated that if Congress does not act to reform the system, the program's trust fund is headed toward depletion. Only incoming payroll taxes would be funding the payments.
By 2033, they say that Social Security will only be able to pay out 77 cents on the dollar. Basically,
you can claim Social Security retirement benefits anytime between age 62 and 70. Your payments at age 62 will be reduced. You get less money for a longer period of time. At age 67, you receive 100% payoff. Delaying your payments to age 70 will give you the largest possible monthly payout. Once you make the selection, that is what you will receive for the entirety of your life. You should also know Social Security payments can also be taxed.
But your Social Security can be taxed if you're over certain income thresholds, and up to 85% of your Social Security can become taxed.
If you are still on the job, not quite ready to step into your golden years, plan for that day.
Make sure you're contributing to your company retirement plans, your IRAs, things of that nature, that you're putting money away first. You're paying yourself first.
Some more tips, and as Dawn was putting this together in parts of her conversation with the advisors, that Social Security isn't just something that's automatically going to be given to you, that you do have to apply when you're ready and you decide when and how much money you would like to take from your benefits. So you have to fill out the application online or go to your local Social Security Administration office. There's a government representative that should be contacting you by mail to start the verification process up to that point. And at the same time, some heads up from experts, advisors, and planners that be wary of any potential scams out there, because there are people who are ready to take your money. So just to double check where your money is going to ultimately go over the course of your application process. A reminder that all of our top stories, headlines are updated as soon as possible, as soon as we're made aware of them, and they end up right here on the homepage of our website, wave3.com. You can scroll down to go through, of course, the local stories of things happening here in our own backyard, national, international updates, stories, breaking news, and headlines, all there for you. As a reminder, part of our Logan Perrone's reporting on Clarksville Police's new contract will be updated with his full video report tonight at 11, so just make sure to look for that. And all the latest, not just on wave3.com, but also on the free Wave News apps, the Wave Weather app as well, and through all the myriad channels you can connect with us if that's you on your Wave Now app over your smart TV, or joining us on our different streams for Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Always appreciate you connecting with us. So we're going to be here at the station working to have the Wave News at 11 o'clock broadcast ready for you. I'm going to be back here tomorrow night at 8:05 to, again, unpack and unwind the day's biggest stories. Always appreciate your time. As always, take care. We will see you tomorrow, and we will be here, as I said, for Wave News at 11. Hope you have a good night.